Hi, everybody. This is Chris Long, and welcome to a very special edition of um, our AIS Around the Net. And today we have with us Brian Bennett, who's who's a former teacher. And I had the pleasure of meeting Brian through Twitter at first, and then we met up at the ISTE conference in San Diego. I think it was in summer of 2012.
12. Yep. So, yep, 2012 was my first one. So.
Yeah, and I ran into Brian and I saw some of the things that he was doing with his students in his class, and I jumped at the opportunity to have him come and share with us today how to use video in your class and actually go beyond the lecture. So I think one of the common questions we get when we try to make an instructional video is like, well, how do we get started, and then where do we go from there? So Brian's going to give us an overview of that today, and then how you can use some free and simple tools and things like Snagit and Camtasia to make that easier. Before we get started, I know last time we ran into a little glitch with the question and answer app. The way that this works, I did a little experimenting today, is that you need to actually be watching this this YouTube broadcast on the event page. And so if you're here, you probably are on the event page, but if you're in YouTube, it will not work. So make sure you go to our course and click on the link, and you'll be in the Google Plus event page. And then the other gotcha is you have to have a Google Plus account and be signed into your account. So that being said, you can watch this, and it's really cool when you do, though. You can click on the Q&A, and in the upper right-hand corner, you'll see a question box. And if you have a question, you can just type it in now. And what I'm able to do is when we're answering questions, I'm able to say, hey, we're answering this question, and it marks it in the YouTube video. So somebody that is watching it live or even later can come back and look at the questions, and they go, oh, where's the answer to that one? And you can click on it, and it'll take you right to the answer. The other thing that we have enabled here is a thumbs up and thumbs down, which YouTube calls the applause app in the Hangout, and that is really cool too. When you thumbs up, it'll give you a little applause sound. Now Brian and I won't be able to hear that, but what is beneficial about that is later when people watch it, you'll be able to see those high points in the video, and you can click right on those high points and go, oh, wait, everybody really liked what was said here, or they found something really interesting in there, and maybe you don't have time to watch the whole thing, but you want to get the high points. So that's interesting, and it also gives us good feedback on how to make better videos. So with all that said...
lots of applause, please.
Yes, lots of applause. Hey, everybody try it right now. Applause. So, and the last thing, we don't want the Google Plus thing to be a barrier to asking questions if you want to get a question in. So the other thing that you can do is just send a tweet to either Brian or myself or the course hashtag, which is, excuse me, hashtag AISMOOC. And we'll check our Twitter feed at the end here and make sure we answer questions that way as well. So with all that said and out of the way, Brian, go ahead and get us started out.
Yeah, so housekeeping is always the hardest thing to remember. I mean, I keep a notebook next to my desk, and it's always got this 10 things long. So thank you for that introduction. My name is Brian Bennett, and I am a former teacher. I'm not currently in the classroom right now, but I spent 4 years in the chemistry classroom. And 3 of those 4 years, I used flipped instruction, and that's how Chris and I met. I was at ISTE presenting with TechSmith as a teacher about flipped learning in my classroom. A lot of teachers use TechSmith software, and so that's where I am now. I'm actually working with TechSmith. My official title is Academic Solutions Engineer, but it's a fancy way to say that I make sure that teachers are successful with video. So I do a lot of trainings, I do a lot of webinars, I do a lot of writing for TechSmith. I work with marketing and development, so I've got my hands in a lot of different projects across the company. But really, what I'm still very interested in. A good chunk of my time is still doing education research and thinking about best practice and how we can apply these things in the classroom. So I'm working on my master's right now in education technology and how things like video, things like mobile apps, and computers and computing in general change what teaching and learning looks like. So tonight for me, it's after 8 o'clock here. I live on the East Coast. What we're going to kind of do is we're going to kind of break this down into 3 sections, and I'm going to talk a little theory, we're going to look at a little research, and all of this is linked on the Google document that's linked from the event page, I believe. But if you are a research person and you want to learn more about it, read the papers. Those are both linked in there, as well as any of the example videos that we show. And afterward, if there are questions or things that you want more information about, I can definitely pass along that information as well. So we're going to kind of play a game switching back and forth between some of the things that I do. I've got my iPad here. We're going to talk about mobile apps. Chris has got some videos queued up that we're going to pull up as well. But I want to start thinking from the very base level, and I like to call this video on the go. One thing we talk about a lot with mobile video, or with video in general, is that it's really hard to get started. It's hard to figure out how to get over what we like to think of as the first video hump. So you've been learning about these things, advanced instructional strategies, and Chris and I were chatting beforehand, and he said one of the biggest questions I get is, how do I start? So I'm going to say, forget about editing, forget about screen recording, forget about PowerPoints and lectures and everything. We're going to start with the thing in your pocket, right, or the thing on your desk. 99%, that might be a high estimate, but you know, a lot of the world now has a smartphone. Over 50% of the web traffic is coming from a smartphone of some kind. That's global. Our students, most of them have smartphones. Many of them have iPads as well. Many of them have computers on top of that. Our schools are filling up with devices. And instead of thinking about learning all of the steps involved with doing complicated video editing and processing, just start with mobile video. When I go to conference sessions or when I'm doing workshops with people, I have everybody take out their phones, and I say, all right, open up your photo library on your phone. Tell me how many photos you have on your phone, and it's in the hundreds, right? I think mine's got over 500 right now, and most of them are of my daughter and my dog. Some of them are on vacation. You know, but a lot of these, we're comfortable with whipping out our phones or bringing out our iPads and taking pictures of things. And the great thing is, usually with just the flick of your finger within that same camera app, you can switch it over to that video mode, and then you're right there. You can get going and you can get started with it. So I'm not asking you to really stretch your brain too much with this first slice, because we're already familiar with making short videos. It's a really low barrier for entry. It gives us something in our hands, something tangible that we can do. It's not thinking about where I position PowerPoint to PDFs on my computer screen. It's thinking about what I'm actually pointing my camera at while I'm doing this. The other thing that this helps facilitate is length of your video. There is some research. I had a hard time finding some specific research on things like attention span with video. I did find some articles that referenced attention span, but the links that they or the other articles that they referenced weren't scholarly. They were just books, things to do with process. So I didn't include those. But they're, even in research methodology now, looking at how video is used in instruction, there are explicit lines in this research that say things like videos were kept to a minimum length to maximize the amount of time that they have with students. They don't want to have these videos long and overbearing, and that's easy to do with a phone because you're looking and you're talking about something. So we've got our camera. There's no reason you can't, and actually, no, I'm not going to show that. We don't need to see that. There's no reason you can't just make a video. I think, Chris, you might have mentioned that one of the first assignments for video was to make an introductory video of themselves.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's as easy as pulling out your phone, flipping the camera so you're looking at yourself as you hold it out, and talking and giving a little bit of a background on yourself. That's a great way to get started. Put a link on your syllabus. Put a link on your class website. I've got friends who are making introduction videos for parents. We've got a lot of time with students that first week of school going over syllabus, class procedures, and all this stuff, but the parents don't get to see you until a month, 6 weeks, 8 weeks into school, and that's even if you still have a parents' night. So they're creating these just, hey, I'm Mr. Bennett. I'm the biology teacher this year. This is what I enjoy doing. This is how we're going to be doing things in class, and posting a 1-minute YouTube video up that mom and dad can watch with son or daughter at home. So getting started with video we got to get away from that instructional mindset. Let's get comfortable with just communicating with this medium before we get into instruction. So, Chris, if you could, I think you're driving the boat.
I am.
If you could flip over to that Vine video for a second.
Okay.
Okay, so this is a mobile app, and if you've got a phone or kids or students even, you're familiar. You might be familiar with this, but this is an app called Vine, and Vine is a video app. It's actually owned by Twitter, but the entire premise of Vine is that you have 6 seconds to make a video, and it takes that 6 seconds and it just creates a little loop for you. So this is an example of a science-based company called Narbris, or Narbris, I'm not quite sure how to say it, but they post these just interesting videos having to do with science from their Vine account. And so this one is looking at kinetic versus potential energy. So when we're thinking about using video in the classroom, maybe this is something that you set up after school one day. Shoot 6 seconds of video. You don't even have to talk, right? And then your students, you can pull this up on the board, grab that link, put it up on your projector when the students come back in, and you start your activity off that way. Other ways to do it are to go through Vine and search for things like 6-second science. You can see that hashtag on the screen there. That hashtag is full of great science content. There's a teacher in Tennessee, his name is Adam Taylor, and he posts probably 85% of the 6-second science videos that I see. Things from his backyard, things having to do with insects and spiders and bats and trees and everything you can think of. There's this company Narbris, there's other students even. So this is where we start to get past the fold, right? So once you get a little bit more comfortable, you might start thinking, hey, my students can do this. And to be completely honest, your students are probably ready to do this even if you're not. So think about allowing them a chance to pull out their phones and take a quick video to do a summary of their activity. Do a 6-second interview. You know, come up with creative ways to communicate things with video with a limited time frame, because that's not only giving them a chance to speak in a medium they're comfortable with, but that 6-second limitation also pushes them into higher order thinking, because they have to get the essential information. There's a lot of abstraction, there's a lot of planning that goes into creating these videos. So this is one way, again, to begin playing with a very little time investment. And you can replicate this with your camera. You don't need to download the app if you don't want another app on your phone. You can just limit yourself to 30 seconds with that, with your video camera, like I was talking about earlier. I want to flip over to the BBC video next. So Instagram, right, just as big as Twitter, and very photo-based. It's all photo-based, except Instagram now offers 15-second videos. So depending on what your students are comfortable with, let them use Instagram instead of Vine. Really, we shouldn't be caring about what particular app they're using. We need to really think about what they're communicating through that medium. So this might be a case where Instagram is blocked in your school. Kids can't get on it on Wi-Fi, but Vine is open. So you can head over with Vine. If you're in the opposite situation, pick Instagram. It doesn't matter. There's no difference between the two other than the time length. So this is another example of what you can do. There's a lot of news outlets on Instagram, and I really like the BBC because throughout the day they put up 15 seconds of news headlines, and these are all current events. So a lot lately have been about Hong Kong. They've been about the Ebola outbreak. They've been about ISIS and things going on in the Middle East. But they're also about things like humanitarian issues in Brazil, right leading up to the World Cup. There was a lot of posts about Brazil. So if you're humanities, English, history, social studies, anything along those lines, news outlets are a great way to get video information into your students' hands. And all we're asking them to do is follow a news account and watch for that as they're flipping through their feed on the bus. Video is natural. When we see especially social issues like this, if you go online and Google some of these pictures from Hong Kong, everyone, and these thousands and thousands of people, is taking video. Ferguson, Missouri, everything that was breaking news was coming out in the form of video on Vine, on Instagram. We have to, again, like I feel like the broken record already 15 minutes into this, think about how we can connect with other people using video. But start small. Start with the phone. Start with the iPad. Start with that thing in your pocket that can do all of these things. That can share video, take video, allow comment discussions happen on video, and that's a great way to get into that mindset of thinking about how to communicate asynchronously through video as a format. So do you want me to keep going, or are there questions?
Wow. Okay. Okay, so I don't know what it is. I practiced, but so the question app is not enabled, it said.
Oh, bummer.
So one of these days I'm going to get this right.
Yeah.
So let's just, again, direct any questions you might have to at CLongHB or at Bennett Science or AIS MOOC.
Yeah.
One of the three, we'll pick it up.
Yeah, I've got mine open too here.
We've got our tweet decks going, so we won't miss you if you tweet.
Cool. Just a couple other thoughts around mobile video, just for best practice. I hate to be, I don't want to come across as sarcastic or overbearing, but if you were to go out into your living room, or if you're on a computer right now, your screen faces this way. Actually, I'll show you my screen. We watch video in widescreen, not this way.
That's called vertical video syndrome.
Yes. You want to avoid vertical video syndrome, and if you've never noticed it before, I promise you, if you go on YouTube and find somebody who's posted a mobile video and it's got the chunky black bars on either side, it's going to drive you crazy for the rest of your life. So I apologize, but you're welcome. Always, if you're doing video, always shoot it in landscape mode, because you get the widest field of view. Computer monitors, televisions are built with the landscape orientation in mind. Photographs doesn't matter as much because we can crop and rotate and do different things. But with video, even if it's shot in landscape, if you rotate it, it's going to be really stretched out and awkward looking. So best practice for good resolution, nice clear images, always shoot it in landscape. I've given a couple ideas already, but two of my favorite. I mentioned doing the classroom introduction, excuse me, or a welcome video. Another great one to do is a walkthrough of your classroom, and this is especially good if you're in elementary or if you're in a classroom with a lot of procedures. In the science lab, a lot of my first lab days were spent talking with students about lab procedures and where to find chemicals and where to find goggles and where stuff goes when you're done, and it just takes up a ton of time, and it's not something that they're going to remember in 6 months, maybe, give or take. So what I would do is that before students even showed up, I took my phone or my iPad and I walked around my classroom and I said, here's where your goggles go. Goggles go on your face. And then I go over to the sink. Here's where I'd like you to put your glass. The soap is here. Dish rack is here. Wash this stuff. Leave this other stuff for my student assistant. So having something like that on hand is another. It's super easy, right?
Let me interject there for a second.
Yeah.
So I love that idea. And I probably should have done this for the course that everybody's in right now. But so we're all on LMSs in the virtual world, right? So our classroom, what's our classroom? Our LMS, maybe. If I would say almost more than 90% are using some sort of an LMS. But the problem with that, even at the same school, I think you're going to see teachers using the LMS in different ways and different features and having different homepage setups and having different workflows and everything. So yeah, let's make a video. A screenshot video, right? You can use Jing for this, right? Or your screen capture or anything and hey, walk through your course. Hey, this is where you're going to find the announcements. This is where I want you to look every week. This is where your assignments are. This is our discussion board, and here's what I think that would be very powerful. And
a great thing too is that you can make them as you need them, right? So if I'm coming into the first day of school, maybe doing classroom procedures if I'm in an elementary school. I saw a teacher, a friend of mine actually, who would make a video and she would show students where in the room everybody lines up, where their coats go, where their lunches go, things like that. And so another way to approach this is you can front load as much as you want, but you can never anticipate everything. So as students come, think about the question that you get every day. What's that procedural question? Mine was, Mr. Bennett, where do I put my homework? Where do I put my late work? Or, Mr. Bennett, how do I find your classroom Google folder? Or something along those lines. Every single one of those questions would take me 15 seconds out of every single day. And so when you think about it, right, 15 seconds, that's okay. If I get it 4 times a day, that's a minute. If I have 180 days a year, that's 180 minutes. That's 3 hours of time that I can reclaim by just using a very simple video to give that little piece of instruction. And so in a high school setting, I can be a little bit more standoffish with my kids, but if they came up and said, Mr. Bennett, where do I put my late homework? walk away. There's a video posted. I would have a QR code on the wall. They could go scan it and watch the video, or they would just get their friend to tell them. And eventually they would get tired of asking me, and I would get tired of them asking me, and they learn like, oh, I should just remember where stuff goes and take care of it myself. So turn it sideways, do your classroom walkthroughs, procedures, welcome videos, things like that. Another really good example using mobile, and this is another app-based one, and I'm actually going to share. Am I allowed to share my screen? Can I do that?
I think you are, yeah.
All right, so let me pull up my screen real quick. I'm going to show you an app as I get it ready. This one is called Show Me, and there are dozens and dozens and dozens of iPad apps that allow you to share your computer screen or share your device screen with somebody else. So we'll share that. Okay, so I've got this app open right now, and this is one that I like. TechSmith also has one called ScreenChomp, but it's geared more for younger grades, so I tended not to use it too much. But I really like Show Me because what it does is it gives me the options to do things like bring in pictures. So I've got a picture of a heart here. If I was teaching a biology class and maybe we're doing a lab on the heart, I've got this app. I've got a picture of a heart. I just did a Google search for it, and I bring it in. Now, instead of waiting until the next day to address misconceptions, maybe I saw a lot of confusion about one particular idea. Now I can take this app, and right at the very top, there's this record button. So I can hit this record button. It says, can I access your microphone? And so I'm recording right now. It's actually recording anything that happens on my screen. So I can grab a pen, and I can say, all right, class, everybody, we had some problems with this today. So the path of the blood, it comes in from the superior vena cava, and then it goes out through your pulmonary arteries, and these go to your lungs, and then it comes back through the pulmonary veins to the heart, and then it's pumped out to the rest of your body through the aorta. Boom. There's a lesson. I have then, oops, there we go. I have now completed a lesson that will address a misconception with my students. They can watch it whenever and wherever they're ready. I do not have to wait for that quiz to come back with a bunch of failing grades on it. I don't have to wait for a bunch of confusion and frustration in the classroom. I can address it at the point of confusion using a simple video. And all I was doing to draw was using my finger, so just drawing little arrows, and I'm narrating the entire thing. So an app like this, I believe Show Me is free. There's another one called Explain Everything that's like $5. It has even more features. It allows you to pull in like Google Drive stuff, PDFs. So depending on the level of complexity, whatever resources you have, find something that works and go with it. And that's what happens to be the one that I like. Cool. I'm just checking my TweetDeck real quick.
Yep, so far I don't think we have any questions, but again, if you guys have questions, feel free to tweet them. I changed my nameplate here to AISMOOC, hashtag AISMOOC, and we are checking.
So we've talked about mobile video a lot, right? Simple to get into, use your thumb, point your camera. Now we're gonna take it up another step. So when we're talking about creating instructional materials in particular, now we're in the mode of classroom practice. As a teacher, I understand best practice for instruction. I know what methods I need to use. Direct instruction, lecture, whatever you want to call it, is a totally appropriate method of instruction. But we need to think about in what situations are we using it and how can we be effective with that. So we're going to bump it up one more step now. Away from the mobile device, we're going to move over to the laptop or the computer, or whatever you're using. And now we're going to be talking about desktop creation or screencasting. And this is a term that gets thrown around a lot. And so the simplest way to talk about or to think about screencasting is I am showing something on my computer. If I put a GoPro on my shoulder and it pointed at my computer screen and recorded what I was saying and what I was doing on the screen, that's a screencast just done by software on your machine. So anything I see on my desktop, any windows I have open, any documents I have open, any programs running, as well as the audio coming in through my microphone, it's going to create a video of my computer screen and that audio, and sometimes the webcam, depending on what software you're using. So I like to split these out a little bit more because Like I mentioned, this is more in the pre-planned instruction phase. So I might have a PowerPoint, a slide or two that I want to go over. I might have a PDF or a worksheet that I want to give instruction on. Chris mentioned a minute ago going through your LMS, showing students where your class is going to have their discussions, where your class is going to be turning in homework. Doing things like showing students how to share a Google document. You need to do that on your desktop because there's no way to do it on a mobile device other than holding your phone up. Then you get a shaky video and it's hard to watch. So anytime we're talking about screencasting, at least from my perspective, this is something you are planning on ahead of time. So you are front-loading either instruction or help of some kind. You can do it in the post sense, but it's not as easy to do on the fly because you've got to sit down and get everything organized. There's a few other considerations we have to make. When we're doing desktop recording, it's really easy to sit and just talk and talk and talk and talk and talk. Mainly because there's nobody stopping you from talking. So when we're having a conversation with people, when we're talking in front of students, there's back and forth, there's hands going up, there's questions, you're redirecting, you're getting up, you're moving. There's a lot of shift in the process. When I'm in front of my computer, some of my first screencasts were like 20 minutes. And if you've ever tried to watch a 20-minute YouTube video, it's really hard to do. Maybe because you're at work and you get an email, and the first thing your eyes go to is how long is this video? Do I have time to sit down and watch it? I guarantee you your students are doing the same thing. When they see that video go up in the homework section of your website or however you're distributing information, the first thing they're going to take a look at is how long is this video, and they're going to start filing it away in their brain in terms of when they can get to it. We don't want video to be a get-to-it situation. I want video to be something that's helpful, something that's to the point, something that gets them the information they're looking for quickly and efficiently. So it's like making yourself on demand on every topic along the way, and it's overwhelming to think about. So let's break that down a little bit more. Right now I'm focusing on a product. We're going to talk about TextSmith products because Chris is going to talk about some giveaways that are going on, so we'll focus on that. But really, again, the piece of software you use is irrelevant. There's web-based ones you can use. There's Chrome-based recordings you can use now for Chromebooks, and then there's desktop ones that you can use. So if we could flip over, I think you've already got it queued up.
Oh, I do.
Yep.
Okay, hold on a second. Okay, and this one we have sound?
Yes.
Okay, hold on a second. That's a little trickier. Okay, hold on.
If we can't get the sound live, it's okay. I can talk over it while it's going.
I got sound. I just have to unmute.
Okay.
Okay, you should be able to see this. Oops, have to actually push play.
Details.
Yeah.
This is because Chrome keeps track of web store logins different than the Chrome browser login, and they have to match in order to install the app. It's usually not a problem for most people, but this is what you would do. So you would just go to Chrome, Preferences, and here in Settings, it'll give you a Users box. Now you need to, if you don't have one, so I've got one for my work account, which is my b.bennett@textsmith. My personal account. That's good. You can go ahead and pause it there. So you can add a new user. Okay, so just from that little chunk, if you put your mouse back over the play bar, just so we can see how long this particular video is. I believe it's only, yeah, 1 minute and 6 seconds. So let me just give you some background. I had gotten a question from a friend saying, hey, I've got multiple Google accounts. I have to keep signing out and signing back in. Is there any way I can do this a little bit better? And so what I did is I sat down with Snagit, that piece of software I mentioned, and I made a 1-minute video for him, showing him how he can use different Chrome windows signed into different accounts to manage all those accounts. So now, like my workflow is I've got a work window because I have a work Gmail account, and I've got my personal one. All of my logins are kept separate. All of my passwords are kept separate. All of my Chrome extensions and apps are kept separate from one another, and it makes my life a lot easier. So this situation is something where I got a question. I knew I didn't want to edit the video. I could go through it in a minute or less, and I could just give that background information, some basic information, the steps to follow to accomplish that task, and send it out as a video. So that minute and 6 seconds, it maybe took me a minute and 30 seconds to do the whole thing total between creating, saving, and uploading a video, and then emailing a link out to them. But because it's based on a desktop piece of software, I had to use a desktop recorder. I kept it short and to the point. So when, I don't remember who I sent this to, Carl maybe, when I made this video, I knew all he wanted to know was how to log into different Chrome windows. So I did not go through building your Chrome account or what Chrome is and how to use account features and all this stuff. I just went through that immediate question. So a great way to get started with this type of desktop recording is doing things like homework examples. So when I was teaching AP Chemistry, if you've taught AP classes before, you know that there's a free response section. So AP's biology, chemistry, physics, all of these science courses, there's free response questions that are multi-step, like A through G sometimes. And my students were having a really difficult time working through those problems on their own. So we would do our lecture in class, we'd go through, do practice problems, do our labs, I would work a practice problem with them. After school, I would sit down and pull up my PDF of all of these questions that I could pull from, and I would work my way through one of these problems. At my desktop, it would take me 3 or 4 minutes, and now my students had a concise example that they could watch on their own, at their own pace, of how to solve that particular type of problem. So I've moved away from just-in-time teaching or that on-demand teaching and into thinking about what my students need when I'm not around and making short, unedited takes or clips that they can use to get that one tiny piece of information. And I bring this up now because it sets the stage for the next iteration that we'll get to in just a minute. There's a few things that I want to mention about short videos. First of all, it's easier on you. If you keep your videos short, you are not going to be spending an hour going over your, American history 1900 to 1915 lecture. You want to pull out specific chunks. And the way I broke these down was looking at my objectives based on my standards. So everything we do is standards-based just to make sure that we're being accountable, really. And then we break those down into objectives or goals or I can statements or whatever you want to call them. And each of those objectives became a video for me because it was one idea within that standard. So a standard might have been a student knows how to calculate the molar mass from a chemistry example. Calculating molar mass requires 3 or 4 individual processes that all work together. So I'd make one video for each of those individual processes. So it saves me time because I'm going step by step. I'm not doing a ton of re-recording and I'm doing a 15-minute video. I make a mistake, I'm stuck. I have to go start again. It saves me that time. Your students are going to be much happier because now your videos are things like finding the mass of an element, finding the percent composition of an element based on its mass, finding the mass of a compound based on the mass of the elements. So these are broken down. They really get a TV guide of what they can watch based on the instruction that you're providing and pick the piece that's most effective for them. They don't have to sit through that 15 minutes and think, I think it was somewhere in that 5, 6, 7 minute range. So it's easier for them to just do a quick survey of the information available and then take advantage of it. And thirdly, this is looking at some more research. There have been reports, and the example I think I linked is from 2005, so right in the very beginning of video. The report mentioned CD-ROMs, so it kind of helps you ballpark when that stuff is being used. But they mentioned that students, they would often find that they needed to pause the video when they were listening to a lecture. And I know this is something, especially in flipped learning, that's shown as a benefit. Students can pause the video, but what the researchers reported is that it often broke the attention of the students. So they would pause the video, write down whatever they needed to write down, and then when they went back, they had a hard time getting back into the frame of mind for their instruction. So keeping videos short negates the need or the necessity to pause a video because you're moving too fast or you're doing too much. So we can help keep their attention, and not because they have short attention spans, but because typically they're coming to look for that one piece that they missed in class or they missed in the lab, or they just want to review. So there's a lot of rationale here in terms of keeping videos short based on your sanity, your student's sanity, and then your students' capability of learning from those videos.
I had a question. Yeah, we got a question. What's the best export format for using Camtasia Captivate 8?
Okay, yeah, I did see this through, so Gwen. So when we're talking about video exporting, in general, when we're talking about video, especially video that's going online, you want to make sure you're in MP4 format. Every video that you upload to YouTube gets, even if it's not an MP4, will be converted, transcoding, into an MP4 video, because MP4 plays on iPads, it plays on Android devices, it plays on desktops. There's no formatting issues that go along with it, and we're actually seeing we're kind of on the start of a shift now, where video is gaining the ability to be played direct from the web browser itself. It's called HTML5 video. There's a standard for it, but it's kind of one of those things where there's a standard but nobody's following it yet. There's a lot of turnaround that has to happen. So in general, you want to make sure you're in an MP4. Gotcha. Yeah. Okay, so we've talked about, let me get my notes back up. So we've talked about mobile, we've talked about desktop, we've talked about best practices for both of those. Now we're going to take it one step more in that desktop category into like the uber instructional video stage, where we're planning ahead, we're building playlists out, we're doing a lot of editing, there's a lot of media coming into it. So let's flip over and take a look at just a few seconds of that last, that YouTube clip that I sent. Okay.
What happens on the DNA, so we'll use glue for this polymerase. So we've got, and it reads a few at a time, as it's chugging along. But what we're focusing on, top half, right here. Okay, I'm interested in the 3 to 5 direction. So out behind it is a new mRNA strand. And this is a 5'.
Okay, I'll see in instructional videos. So this is a YouTube video that I've got up. It's still live right now. People are still watching it. But it's one where the basic information, the information I'm trying to communicate to my students is the idea of transcription, going from one type of DNA to RNA, which is used in your cellular processes. The entire video, even though this video is almost 8 minutes long, the entire thing is based on transcription. So I just want to talk through a couple things that we're seeing here. First of all, I'm working on a PDF that I already had as a note sheet for my students. So I'm not creating a new library of content for them to use. I'm just, instead of doing it live in class with them, I'm doing it on a video, and they still have a blank copy of this page. I still hand out my note packets, I still hand out all my resources, but instead of me talking in front of them, I'm moving around the classroom. Some kids are watching this at home, some kids are watching it in the car, some are watching it in my classroom because that's when they have access. But the point is that they can get to it when they need it. So we go through our instruction. I did not create a new library of stuff. I'm just using what I had, and I'm giving very specific instructional things, right? I'm actually working through the lesson. There's a couple other things here. First of all, I'm zoomed in on the page, so if you, the video is linked in the notes in the Google document, so you can go and watch the whole thing if you want. You can take a look at any of my videos on my YouTube site, but I use animations. So when I'm in a classroom, I can point to a spot on the board and I can direct my students' attention using gestures. When I'm in a video, right, I'm stuck, even in this hangout, I'm stuck down in the bottom corner, right? I can point all I want, but I cannot make you look at what I want you to look at. But what I can do is I can zoom in on the screen. And I can make it so all you can see is what I'm talking about. So again, go ahead later, take a look at this video, and you'll see how I use those animations to help direct my students' attention. The other thing I've included is a webcam. So in that bottom left-hand corner, or the bottom right-hand corner of that video, all of my videos include my webcam. And I do that mainly because I do not want my students learning from a disembodied voice. And so if you think with me, if you go to a conference, and you go into your conference room, and then 10 o'clock hits, the door behind you shuts, and then somebody starts speaking from the speakers in the ceiling, and they're talking through stuff, and then there's a whiteboard up front, and things are being written and said. I mean, so first of all, you're probably going to be a little confused, maybe a little scared about what's going on because you're locked in a room and there's somebody talking at you about biology. Second of all, it's hard to make that personal connection. I've only got so many days with my students. If I'm asking them to watch these videos instead of listening to me teach in the classroom, I want them to make sure they know that I am their teacher. And Chris told me you guys have already talked about why it's important to make your own videos. I am 100% behind that. I think it's important to bring in other people's content as well, but I make all of my own videos because I know my students. I know what inside jokes we have with each other. I know what they need in the instruction. I know what I've referenced before and what I'm going to be referencing later. So I've got the big picture behind things, and I can make sure that that's continuous throughout their digital experience online as well as the classroom experience. So again, not saying that it's not okay to use other stuff, but I think it's extremely important both for relationship building and for continuity in the instruction to make sure that you have your own stuff in there as well. Hang on one sec. Is one of your mics still going? I got a lot of fuzz.
How's that?
That's much better.
Okay. Sorry about that.
No problem.
So, what was I saying? Oh, I'm glad you said that because I always debate back and forth with different people on like should you have the talking head video in the corner of your videos or not. And I even asked some of my students and so, I haven't found yes or no, but I think what I've started to do is actually like show a screen and then show me full screen, show a screen and then kind of go back and forth that way. I don't know. I think you've got to find a balance that works for you. But ask your students as well. Experiment a little.
Yeah, absolutely. I say I kept my picture in all of my videos, and that's because I put it in the first one and then I took it out of the second one and they said, hey, where'd you go? So I found just through experience. But I also know a lot of very successful teachers using video in their classroom. One who comes to mind is Stacy Roshan. She lives out in Maryland, math teacher. She doesn't have her picture in any of her videos. So and again, this is something that there's absolutely no research behind. I cannot find anything anywhere. And it's just one of those things where your students might say, hey, we prefer it if your picture was there, so doing a back and forth thing, the screen and then jumping over to a webcam view, blowing yourself out. And with the editing programs, right, so if we're talking Textma stuff specifically, Camtasia is the program. It's on Windows and Mac. It records your screen, it records your webcam, and you can edit both of them on their own. We've got videos demoing this, and my YouTube channel is videos demoing this as well. And there are some free or inexpensive web-based programs that you can use to create videos that include a webcam view. So again, it's not the platform that makes a difference. It's what you're doing with it. Find one that works for you. Find one that you're comfortable with, because if you're comfortable with it, you're going to be more comfortable teaching. You're not going to have this thing going on in the back of your head where you're afraid to mess up because you don't know what the program is going to do. And that's kind of the top of the line, right? So my Camtasia videos some of them look fancy when you first look at them, but compared to some of the stuff on YouTube, mine are still, very podunk, grassroots based. You do not have to be an editing wizard in order to get to make these helpful for students. And so the last piece of research I give you take it for what it's worth. So Michigan State University and University of Michigan teamed up, I don't know, maybe 2012 now, and they looked at freshman engineering students, and they wanted to know, would students watch videos on their own? Or did there have to be some kind of motivating factor behind it, right? Did there need to be homework? Did there need to be a quiz? Anything like that? And what they found was that as long as the students found the video helpful, they would watch it. There did not have to be a quiz associated. There did not have to be points associated with it. So it's helped the professors narrow down their content to what's helpful and what's not, because I can see how many views are on one and how many views are on another. So looking at the helpfulness of the video, but also that it shows a level of engagement with the students. They were comfortable going to that video because they knew it would answer the questions that they had. And it takes trial and error. If you look at some of my really old stuff, I watch it now and I'm like, man, it's heartbreaking.
Yeah, I can relate.
So it's a process. You're not going to nail it on the first one. But back to that study, my videos, they got the views that they got from my students because they were helpful. They wanted to see the notes. They wanted to hear me talk about it, and that's what I was able to do. That's the experience they're used to in the classroom. They can see the notes and hear us talk about it, right? Only now they don't have to be in the room to do that. Or they can be in the room and do that while you're doing something else, working with the other group around the corner. So I've mentioned it before, but I'll say it again. What we're really doing is we're creating an on-demand library that students can access anywhere, anytime, as they need it. So that frees you up to answer questions like, Mr. Bennett, I really understand transcription, but how does this apply to everything else, right? Those are the kinds of questions I want to spend my time working on with students. I don't want to spend my time working on it goes from 3' to 5', because that's something that is just instruction and it's just information. We want to look at applying that information. What's the context? Something I say a lot in conferences is that your job is, you still need to be a content expert, but what you're really needed for is to put that content into context. You understand the big picture, and so your time and your students' time is going to benefit as the more time you can put on the context if you're using video for content. The last thing I'll share is thinking about big picture now for organization. I would encourage you, if you're going to be using video, to make a YouTube channel. And I say that because the first place 95% of the world goes when they're looking for videos is YouTube. So and that includes even if YouTube is blocked in your school. Put it on YouTube, because when your kids aren't in school, they're going to grab their phone or grab their home computer and go to YouTube and Google your name and see what comes up. So I posted everything to YouTube. I posted everything to my LMS because those are the two places my students could use it. I put everything into playlists by chapter. So if you go through my YouTube page, you're going to see a chapter on genetics, you're going to see a chapter on chemical elements, you're going to see a chapter on DNA, or a playlist on DNA, because it keeps everything right there along with each other, and they can jump back and forth as they need to. And I also reference other videos within it. So I might be on number 4 in the series and bring up something like, you remember in video 2 when we talked about this? Well, the student, now they can easily jump backwards to number 2 and get that information if they didn't remember it. So playlists are really helpful for organization. Embedding videos on other places are really good. Getting it outside of YouTube, like onto your LMS or into your class website, if you're using like a Google site or a WordPress site or something like that, the fewer clicks in between individual stages for a student to get at something, the better. There's less chance for them to get lost. And then I mentioned inside jokes earlier, and I think this is one of the best things about having a video library online, is I can take those conversations into the classroom and bring them into the instruction. I can reference, okay, so in class we looked at this, and I might have taken a picture or taken a video with my phone, and I can bring it into my instructional video now. So there's, again, building that connection back and forth. And then students also get to see what your home life looks like, right? We still have like running into your teacher in the grocery store moments where it's like, whoa, this is totally weird. What are you doing outside of school? But when I'm making videos, I mean, this is my home right now. I have a home. Sometimes my wife would walk through the background. I have a family, right? One of my favorites was I was making a video. I had a really echoey office space, So I was actually working in our laundry room because there are clothes hanging all over the place, and they suck up the sound so it doesn't echo as much. And the door was cracked open just a little bit. So in the middle of the video, apparently my wife had reached in behind me, so my students saw this like floating arm come in behind my head in the video, take a towel off the door, and then the door closed behind it. And I had no clue this happened until they were watching the video, and then they said, "Who was that? Who are you living with? There's somebody in your house." So we get to bring that home life in, and we get to build rapport that way as well.
Yeah, I know those moments where the unanticipated things happen is sometimes those moments that will stick with our students forever, and it makes it more engaging for them, actually.
Yeah, even year to year, So the next year's class came in and said, "Yeah, it's some, so and so from last year was telling me there's a video and an arm shows up. What is that?" I'm really looking forward to that.
It's the arm video.
Yeah. So I think all this goes to say, start small, right? This is something that Chris has expressed to you guys, and I gave a lot of good ideas for it. But even this afternoon. Or this evening, take a video with your phone, even if it's not something for school, just to get used to it. Go outside and play with your kids or your dog, and shoot a video of them so you can get it in your head, and then bring that into the classroom. And as you start to feel more confident, extend it to your students. Give them Vine, give them Instagram, allow them to begin communicating and learning from video, and then work up into this desktop recording stuff. Think about how instruction can change. What questions can you answer easily with video so that you never have to answer them again? What instructional materials do you have that could be offloaded to a video to focus your time on context and the bigger picture for what your students are working on?
Well, thank you so much, Brian, for taking the time out and joining us. I really think everybody's going to get a lot out of your tips. And I know Brian's on Twitter all the time, so I know he's really good about answering questions if you have any questions. And I know we have several. Well, at least half of our class is on the other hemisphere, so they're not able to join us live, but a lot of them will check in a little bit later, and they may have some questions. So I know it's okay with you, Brian. Sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure Brian's more very gracious with his time and happy to answer questions. So.
Yeah, I learned a lot from people who are gracious with their time, so I like to give it back as much as I can. There was one question, and I already replied to her on Twitter, but if I do write a lot on my blog, and it's I believe it's linked on on the document.
If you go to this event page, in the About the Event section over on the right, you'll see a resource document, and that's our planning document that Brian and I used, and we have all the links to what Brian shared, as well as link to Brian's Twitter and then his blog. So that's available to you, and you should be able to.
Yeah, and I've got a contact for him on the blog. My Twitter account is there, and you can always hit me there. A lot of this writing falls under the flip class. I've got a flip class category, so if you on my blog, if there's like a search button at the top, if you go to search and then click on flip class, there's a bunch of stuff there. So you can kind of peruse that, or a really nice Google trick in your Google searches. If you do site : and then put a URL, and then any search terms after that, it will only search my site. So if you do site : brianbennett.org/blog, and then search for things like video or flipped classroom or Snagit or Camtasia or whatever, any post on my site with those words in there will show up in that search for you. So you can also kind of browse through that way. But if you still can't find what you're looking for, send me a tweet and I'd be happy to look as well. I may not have written it, so I'd write something then.
Nice. Well, so to end us out here, I have a little fun challenge for you guys, and I'm happy to announce that the company that Brian works for, TechSmith, has given our MOOC, I want to say 8 free copies of Snagit or Camtasia Studio, which is really cool software. And so each week we're going to have like an Easter egg hunt. And this is one of those advanced instructional strategies that may seem a little silly, but brings a lot of fun and life into your class, and it can be used as a learning opportunity. So my Easter egg hunt for you, and it's live now, is to go to our course map. I put a link to a form that you can fill out to submit your answers. So you're going to go to our course map, and you're going to try to find the birthplace of a very famous lecturer, since we've been talking about direct instruction and a lot about lectures and their role in instruction. So an infamous lecturer, you want to search for an infamous lecturer, and you will actually, he's got a red pen or a yellow pen somewhere on our map. And when you find them, go ahead and submit your answer to the Google form, a couple questions, and how I can get a hold of you, and then we'll be selecting the first one that replies with the right answer, and then there's an open-ended question on what makes this lecturer so effective. So the best response there will get the second prize. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what you guys find them, or her, and what you guys come up with. So thanks again, Brian, and thanks everybody for joining us. And we'll see you around in the MOOC.